The format for the evening will be as follows. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to present an opening statement, after which they will have 90 seconds each to answer a series of 7 questions written by us, the IB senior class. Once the candidates have had the opportunity to answer our prepared questions, we will pause for a brief intermission, during which audience question cards will be collected and reviewed. Upon resumption of the forum, each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each audience question, followed by 90 seconds each for a closing statement.
Candidates have been arranged in alphabetical order and will rotate who responds first to each question. Candidates are requested to keep their responses within the allotted time. We have a timer to monitor response time. The timer will raise a yellow card when you have 15 seconds left and a red card when your time is up.
And we would like to remind everyone that this forum will be recorded, and it will be recorded. There are films in the back.
If the candidates are ready, let's begin.
Each candidate will have 2 minutes to provide an opening statement. Mr. Brown, you may begin.
Good evening. My name is Scott Brown. A little bit about me. My family moved to Cave Creek in 2002. Our 2 children grew up through the Cave Creek School District, attending Lone Mountain, Desert Arroyo, and Cactus Shadows. During these years, I was an active classroom volunteer, a helper in the lunchroom, a volunteer in the library, and a co-president of PTO. Also served on several different school and district committees throughout the years. Notably, I served on the Rebuild the Nest Committee, which worked on the master plan for the football stadium and field house construction. In 2015, I was presented the Adult Volunteer Excellence Award by the Cave Creek School District. And at present, I'm honored to be serving as a Cave Creek Unified Governing Board member. Also in the community, I have volunteered for 20 years with the Cave Creek Youth Football and Cheerleading Association. I have served as the association president for the first 6 years, on the executive board for 8 years, and as this year I'm back on as the association president. I'm also an active member of the Kiwanis Club of Carefree. I serve on the scholarship committee, where last May on this stage I was part of our special event, and we were able to award $360,000 in scholarships to 32 local high school seniors. As you can tell, I'm part of this community. I've lived in this community for 20 years, and I volunteer with youth, with our youth football from ages 6 to 14, and then as a volunteer with the Kiwanis, helping seniors with any scholarship grants. So I'm very much a pro Cave Creek person and very much a pro Cave Creek Public Schools person. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Bunkers, you may begin your opening statement.
All right, good evening. I'd like to thank Ccusd and Cactus Shadows, especially the students, for bringing the candidates together in the setting to provide the voters an opportunity to get to know each of us. It's great to see everyone here. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Brian Bunkers. My wife and I moved to Cave Creek in 2000. We have 1 daughter. She's a graduating senior at Cactus Shadows. She's been enrolled and attended Cave Creek School since kindergarten. I'm a veteran, education advocate, and a proud Ccusd parent. I've been serving the community and supporting our schools since our daughter started kindergarten. I've been the PTO president at Horseshoe Trails. I was 4 years there at Horseshoe Trails. I volunteered in the classroom reading with students, helping create the science lab with Mr. Gilkey, and providing hands-on science experiments for those students. I've also served on CCUEF, our education foundation, for 4 years. And during that time period, I was also the chairman of CCUEF. I've also recently served on the board of the Desert Foothills YMCA. Additionally, I've served as a long-term sub at Cactus Shadows during COVID. This meaningful experience was the single most impactful of any of my previous listed experiences. This experience awarded me the opportunity to take an in-depth look into life at Cactus Shadows. It showed what truly amazing students and teachers we are so fortunate to have. If elected to the governing board, I strongly support not only maintaining current programs, but continuing to support all students at all levels and all paths. It's imperative that we offer a quality public education experience in order to maintain and build our community. It takes a village to raise our children. I believe that each of us working together with integrity can achieve our
Thank you,
common
Mr.
goals.
Bunkers.
Thank you.
Mrs. Cummins, you may start your opening statement.
Thank you to the International Baccalaureate students and everyone that helped facilitate this event. My name is Cindy Cummins. My husband and I have called Cave Creek our home for 35 years. I have 3 sons that graduated from Cactus Shadows High School, and now their 5 children all go to schools in our district. I have a degree in nursing, and over my 45-year career, I've worked in critical care, airvac flight, adolescent chemical dependency. I was a school nurse for a couple years in our district. During that time, I started an attention deficit disorder group for parents and kids because I knew that if my child and I were struggling, there must be others out there, and education and learning from each other was the key. I went on to manage a cardiac cath lab for 10 years and recently retired from General Electric Healthcare, working in the cardiac division. I started attending school board meetings over a year ago because I had heard a lot of negative concerns about public education, and I wanted to learn more accurate information regarding these concerns before making a judgment. And what better way to do that than to go to the source? I had no idea that the school board was what the school board was tasked with. What I discovered was an immense responsibility and understanding that the board was tasked with, from approving curriculum, policies, financial oversight, and working with the superintendent. It was apparent that if I did not know these things, there was got to be others out in the community that did not as well. I learned that our school district was not perfect. Duh. But when they identify weaknesses, they start developing a plan of correction. These incorporated the inclusion of teachers, administrators, classified staff, student parents, community leaders, and businesses to find a solution. The end result for this was renewed trust in our educational
Thank you, Ms.
process
Cummins.
and a belief.
Ms. Ulmer, you may start your opening statement.
Thank you, and congratulations to the International Baccalaureate students. You are among the cream of the crop and the true leaders that are going to lead us forward in our country and certainly from our school district, and so we're very, very proud of you. I appreciate your demonstration of commitment and excellence to academics and higher standards, and I look forward to watching what you do as you move forward into the world. Along with my husband, who's in the audience, we have successfully raised 2 children and put forth high-functioning members of society, which we're extremely proud of. Our son currently serves in the United States, the U.S. Marine Corps, and he's an EOD tech in North Carolina, and our daughter, who's in the audience, just recently moved back to Scottsdale from Nashville. I was involved, engaged parent throughout the entire term that my children were in school, from PTO to school site council to room mother, hockey driver, tennis driver, etc. Ran career days and all of that. And I know how important it is to work together as a community to really give our children the best potential and opportunities that are out there. So again, I'm Jackie Ulmer, as was mentioned. I am a business owner, and I've always been committed to leadership myself within the community, starting in student government in junior high school and continuing all the way through. So I definitely appreciate what you all are putting forth into the Cave Creek School District. I think a focus on academic excellence is one of the things that we're really focused on, or I'm really focused on within the district. We have great scores right now, and we are fortunate here in Cave Creek that we are a thriving district in terms of our grades and a lot of what's out there and these amazing bright students that are coming forward. But we have sharply declining enrollment, which is a concern to all of us. I'd like to work together with the other board members, the administration, the superintendent, to figure out what is the root cause of why we have such attrition and how can we improve.
Thank you, Mrs. Ulmer.
All right, now we are going to start with our first question, and each one of you will have 90 seconds to answer, and it's going to first start with Mr. Bunkers. Why did you decide to run for the governing board, and how would you use your board position to promote our district?
All right, thank you. Well, as you can tell from my experience, I've been very involved in the school district, in Cave Creek school districts, the entire time my daughter has been through school. It's a passion of mine. Education is the foundation of everything in society. We need high-quality, educated people in our society, from everything to our democracy, the economy. Education drives innovation, and so high-quality education builds a strong community. We're doing a great job so far with what we have. We need to continue to do more. One of the things that we really need to do is pass this override so that we can retain and attract high-quality teachers so that they can pass that on for high-quality students. Beyond that, we need to change funding in Arizona, the way the education is funded in Arizona. With the latest budget, you'll notice that your tax bills have decreased, and if the override does pass, your tax bill will still be lower than it was previously. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Mrs. Cummins, the same question. Why did you decide to run for governing board, and how would you use your board position to promote our district?
Well, as I told you, I started attending school board meetings, and as a result, I decided that I wanted to be part of restoring confidence in public education. Education publicly has kind of started to get a black eye over the last couple years. There's a lot of choice out there for educational offerings from charter schools, private schools, parochial schools, and choice is a good thing. And finding education that best meets the student needs is imperative. Public schools can and do meet the criterion for all of our students. They are held to high standards of testing by the state and must meet the needs of all students, from Title I to special education to gifted programs to arts, and on and on and on. Because our teachers, support staff, parents, and administration, we have excelled in the field of education. But we can never rest on our laurels, and we need to keep striving to identify areas where it's important and it's needed. I would like to be an active participant in this endeavor.
Thank you. And then Mrs. Ulmer, the same question. Why did you decide to run for governing board, and how would you use your board position to promote our district?
Well, I definitely believe in paying it forward, and there were a lot of people that stepped forward to serve on school boards when my children were going through school, when I was busy being a parent and didn't have time to be involved. And now with grown kids, I have that ability, that time, and that commitment to give back to the community. Along with Mr. Bunkers, I agree that we need to reform the way education funding is done in our state, first and foremost, because there's so much waste and a lot of challenges that we're facing. And as a school board member, I think that we can collectively work together to do good things within our own district, to budget and manage our money effectively, but also work as best we can with the other elected officials, legislators, to say something's wrong at the top and we need to correct that. And I think that we have the best ability to do that. And in the meantime, certainly, I love our teachers. I pride myself that I'm still one of my best friends and book club members is my children's elementary principal. I have maintained those good working relationships. We love our teachers. We want them to feel supported and respected and know that we value the contribution that they make to our children and our future. So working together, I think that we can make a lot of good changes.
Thank you. And then finally, Mr. Brown, why did you decide to run for the governing board, and how would you use your board position to promote our district?
When my family moved here 20 years ago, one of the main reasons why was because of the Cave Creek School District. I got involved when my children were young and continued to be involved all the way up until even after they graduated Cactus Shadows. I'm committed to the education to the students within our district. I recognize that without dedicated individuals on the governing board who are committed to advancing not only the education of our students, but the positives of our district, we need to celebrate our achievements in the classroom and any other future district success that will come from the hard work that's put in by our teachers and our students. As a governing board member, I want to work to ensure that the board is focused on both short-term and long-term goals and goals that will allow the district to measure its growth, find its weaknesses, improve, and be the best that we can be for our students. I hope I bring a new perspective to the board. I'm not afraid to ask the hard questions and the questions that are necessary to continue academic growth and to celebrate all of the successes of all of our students at each of our campuses. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move right on to our second question, which is, what are your top 3 priorities or concerns that you would work on as a board member? Mrs. Cummins, you may start us off.
So the first concern is paying our teachers an equitable rate that is competitive with districts around us. It's very imperative that we keep those educated, certified teachers that we currently have, and then we can attract new teachers. We can't deal without either one of them. The new teachers rely on the expertise and learning from our experienced teachers. The other thing that I would like to move forward is that I'd like to keep improving on the college preparation that we do, but the newer career pathway is kind of my forte that I'd like to go for. What we are offering and what we're entertaining to do in those pathways would be accelerated really nicely. This goes a long way to address the future opportunities for all of our students and incentivize them to keep going on a pathway of knowledge. The other piece of that is just making sure that our financial constraints are in appropriate distribution of funds, and that we don't have to cut anything and we keep our programs intact, but we're physically responsible with everything that we're doing.
Thank you. Mrs. Ulmer, what are your top 3 priorities or concerns that you would work on as a board member?
Well, I think number 1 for me is returning to a state of academic excellence and high standards. We've all suffered through the last 2.5 years, and I think our students have been the most negatively affected in terms of their learning opportunities and capabilities and how that's delayed them. It doesn't take a lot of research out there of headlines and things to realize how far back we've slid in terms of a lot of those standards. And I think that working together, we have the ability to work quickly and efficiently to improve those. Along with that, of course, comes teacher retention and student retention. I was alarmed to learn that less than 50% of eligible students are actually enrolled in the Cave Creek School District. And so I think it's important that we get to the root cause of why and formulate a solid plan to win some of those students back and stop the attrition, and of course reward our teachers accordingly. And then of course safety. I think safety is at the forefront of everyone's mind to some extent. Again, watching national news, we see headlines of what's going on. We hear things around the state of Arizona. We hear things on social media of some of the things going on in our own district. So just making sure that everyone is thriving in a good, positive, safe environment is important.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, your response.
A few years ago, a group called Red for Ed brought attention to teacher salaries throughout the state of Arizona. Continued focus on how we compensate our classroom's most valuable resource, our teachers, is a must. As you know, we can only deliver a qualified education if we have highly qualified and competent teachers in our classrooms. A plan to recruit, retain, and fully support our excellent educators and staff members is crucial in the education process. We, as a district, need to do our best to offer a proper compensation package and establish a program that evaluates our educators yearly in a fair and unbiased way and can continue to celebrate their achievements in both in and out of the classrooms. We have excellent educators here in the district. Large class size is a challenge for us, and that's something that we also need to be aware of as we're looking ahead at our financial issues. We need to be able to have a class that focuses the needs of our students and be able to give that excellent education that we have so far for so many years in the past. It's important to focus on what affords this achievement and recognize the long-term benefits of a smaller class size. One other item, we need to embrace technology and all that offers encouraging innovative ways to maximize the learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Bunkers, what are your top 3 priorities or concerns that you would work on as a board member?
Okay, number one is safety. In order to learn, you have to feel safe. All students need a welcoming and safe space in order to learn. When I first was learning how to teach, I learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Just above physiological is safety. So that's the underlying foundation for education. Students need a welcoming, safe space. Second, retaining and attracting the best teachers and staff. As we know, it's not just a Cave Creek problem, it's not an Arizona problem, it's a national problem. So hopefully there'll be some changes that happen with that. We need to create an environment where teachers want to be here and are allowed to do what they love to do, teach. They're teachers for a reason. We need to remain competitive with neighboring districts with regards to salaries so we can attract the best staff and the best teachers. And then third, maintaining and creating new programs to make Cave Creek Schools a school of choice. We need to make sure that we offer what our community needs for all our students to thrive. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so for the third question, Arizona schools have been facing a teacher shortage over the past several years, in part because of low salaries and low teacher morale. What would you do to attract and retain good teachers in our district? Mrs. Ulmer, you're up to start.
Well, I think a lot of it starts with having tough conversations, and those are hard to have sometimes. One of the interesting things when you put yourself out there as a candidate and you put a button on your website that says, contact me if you have comments, is that you often get them. And one of the things that I did was solicit to hear from teachers who are in the district or teachers who have left the district to find out why. And interestingly, low pay was not the number one reason that most of them mentioned, to me anyway. I'm just simply sharing what was shared with me, that the low pay was not the number one reason that they were leaving the district. So I think first and foremost, we have to be open to having those tough conversations and saying, you know what, maybe we haven't always done the best job in the past of listening, communicating, making sure that teachers feel safe, feel heard, and feel respected. Let's have those roundtable discussions and find out what's going on and find out what it is that they feel would better serve their best interests so that they can put forward the great product that they have of teaching our children. And then certainly looking at pay, because we want to make sure that they have a livable income and have good resources to support them.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, Arizona schools have been facing a teacher shortage over the past several years, in part because of low salaries and low teacher morale. What would you do to attract and retain good teachers in our district?
Well, our teachers and our staff are critical to the success of our students. That's a very simple concept. Great teachers will provide a great education, and thus our kids will benefit the most of that. First and foremost, compensation needs to be addressed. We have an opportunity here in the district with an upcoming an override on our November ballot, and that would go a very long way to help support our teachers with this compensation. Additionally, enhancing the teacher experience in their classrooms and on their campuses must continue to be evaluated. Providing opportunities for specialized training, for career growth, and doing all we can to reduce class size communicates to the teachers that they are valued by the district. I see the relationship of the district with the teachers as a partnership, one in which each supports each other and then does the best for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bunkers, Arizona schools have been facing a teacher shortage over the past several years, in part because of low salaries and low teacher morale. What would you do to attract and retain good teachers in our district?
Well, so we've seen this trend again for 7 years, and it's something, I think it's in the forefront of people's minds now, just like Red for Ed brought teacher salaries to the forefront of mind. So we need to, one, pass the bond so that or the override so that we can increase the teacher salary, and that will also help reduce class sizes. We can hire new staff and teachers, and again, create an environment that allows teachers to do what they do best. Also making Cave Creek not only the choice for students and parents, but the choice for teachers so that they want to come to our district. We're lucky to live in a very nice area. We need to make the area affordable for teachers. Beyond the funding aspect, we need to listen to what our teachers need and want. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, Mrs. Cummins. Arizona's schools have been facing a teacher shortage over the past several years, in part because of low salaries and low teacher morale. What would you do to attract and retain good teachers in our district?
Again, I'm in favor of the override, just so we can be competitive with school districts around the area. A lot of our teachers don't live in the area, and so for them to come up and teach in our community is an amazing process, and we've been very, very blessed. When I talk to teachers, the one thing that they say is if all they had to do was just go in the classroom and teach, they would be so happy, because that's their forte, and that's why they went into the field to begin with. If we continually ask them to pile on and do additional duties, then we're like putting a stranglehold on them. So we want to make sure that we continue to support them in that we don't ask them to do things over and above what the expectations really should be, and that they can focus on the classroom. Also, class sizes, a huge consideration. I can't imagine, I had trouble with just 3 children. I can't imagine teaching a room full of 40, children, and doing the due diligence that you need and to be able to assess them like we should. So supporting them in however we can come and compromise and find the way to keep those class sizes less.
Thank you.
So our fourth question tonight is going to be, what would you do to bring more money into the district? And do you support the current override? Why or why not? Mr. Brown, we'll start off with you.
About the upcoming election for the override, that is the mechanism that the state has put together for school districts to reach out and to help fund some of their items. Obviously, teacher salaries, for one, will be addressed out of this override if it passes, which we hope it does. We have to be able to compensate the teachers. I've seen the frustration over the years as a classroom volunteer, as volunteer on different school committees, and just talking to teachers. And they love their job, they love working with the children, but we have to do all we can do then to increase that minimum salary and help us help our teachers to help our students. Years ago, it took a grassroots movement of teachers down at the Capitol to get attention of our lawmakers. But I think as governing board members, we must also continue to voice our concerns to all of our state representatives, our state senators, and remind them that helping us have proper funding for public schools is one of our top priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bunkers, what would you do to bring more money into the district? And do you support the current override? Why or why not?
Well, first of all, we need to pass this override again. It's super important. Again, we've with a recent budget that passed, our property taxes have decreased. And so even if the override passes, you'll still be paying less in property taxes than you were in previous years. But the override, again, is a temporary solution to a problem. It's the way education is funded in Arizona. And we need to be knocking on their doors down at the state. We need to be electing the right people that are going to fund education properly. And then the third piece of that is enrollment, right? With enrollment comes budgeting. So we are funded through enrollment in our school. So we need to keep our enrollment up through programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cummins, what would you do to bring more money into the district? And do you support the current override? Why or why not?
So one of the biggest problems with our legislature is that we have a really old rule on the books, and it's the aggregate expenditure limit that was established back in the 1980s. And that either needs to be revised or be removed so that we can actually have more monies that come in per student every year in our districts, and it'll provide a lot more funding. The legislature needs to understand that just because we do so well in our schools and our test grades, look good, it doesn't mean that we don't need more funding to continue that process. It's not something that's going to go on forever, and they need to be aware of that. Sooner or later, there's going to be a breaking point. So we need to put priorities into education on a state level. The override is just a no-brainer. It's such an easy thing for us to do and to pass this time. We're one of the few school systems in the state that doesn't have an override or have ever passed a bond in the last few years. So to be competitive, again, we need that override. It's not going to cost us extra money like Brian was talking about because our taxes are going down anyway. So it's literally not even a wash. We won't even see it coming out. So to not support something like that doesn't make a lot of sense in the area that we're dealing. We really need these schools, and we need our kids to have that advantage.
Thank you, Ms. Cummins. Mrs. Ulmer, what would you do to bring more money into the district, and do you support the current override? Why or why not?
Well, going back to the attrition issue and having less than 50% of the kids enrolled in the district, I would love to put together a plan to reach out and bring those bring children back and increase enrollment in our district, not just within the boundaries of the district, but attracting even other, since we have open enrollment in Arizona and in Maricopa County, attracting other people to our district because there are so many great things about the district. And collectively, we all agree that the state legislature, we need a lot of change there. We need an overhaul of how budgeting is done and how expenditures go within the education system. There's a lot of agreement there, but unfortunately, it's not come together. There's too much butting of heads to actually get that done. As far as the override goes, it's a great short-term solution to what we have going on. The biggest challenge that we have that most of us are aware of is that more than 80% of our voting and tax-paying population don't have kids in the district. They're sharp, educated voters, but they don't necessarily totally understand. They're already paying expensive taxes, property taxes. They don't understand how much of their money goes out of the district and how little of it remains in the district. And they have a lot of questions that they're asking about retention and a lot of those type things. And we need to be prepared to really offer those good answers so that we get that support.
Thank you.
Question 5. Declining student enrollment, particularly at the middle and high schools, is an ongoing issue for the district. What are your plans to reverse that trend and attract more students to our district schools? Mr. Bunkers, you're up first.
All right, thank you. Again, declining enrollment. Enrollment is tied directly to funding. We need to make sure that our schools are the school of choice, offering programs and activities that students and parents need and want. We need to ensure our kids continue to demonstrate their high-achieving metrics. We need to maintain and enhance programs offered by our schools, and again, make our schools the school of choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cummins, declining student enrollment, particularly at the middle and high schools, is an ongoing issue for the district. What are your plans to reverse that trend and attract more students to our district schools?
So like Jackie was referring to, we've got a population that has a lot of non-students involved in our district just because they no longer have students in the district. We need to educate them. We need to get the word out about so that's one of the reasons I started attending the school board meetings, was because there was a lot of disinformation out there. We need to find ways, and we've started to disseminate information about why our schools and public education in its totalitarianism really is the way to go, that we can't lose that right. It offers such a big breadth of information to all the children in our community. And it kind of blooms out from there. So if we do right by our students, then we're going to attract parents that want to come into our areas. We have had, school board members and people talk already about why they came to our community because of our school systems or because of the areas that we live in. We are small, but we really care about each other. And we need to make sure that the recognition is there for what we've already established and what this public school is charged with and what it's able to accomplish. And we're just going to have to do that by educating.
Thank you. And then Mrs. Ulmer, declining student enrollment, particularly at the middle and high schools, is an ongoing issue for the district. What are your plans to reverse that trend and attract more students to our district schools?
Well, certainly enhanced programs and making it more attractive and educating those in the district and even outside the district who might come in as to what those programs are and how they best serve us. What I keep hearing is over the course of the years, we've lost a lot of the enhanced and exciting programs that we had in the district. So I think a lot of that goes back to looking at why did those programs disappear? What can we do collectively to bring them back? And then again, not to beat a dead horse, but why is there so much attrition? How can we reach out and get true, roundtable discussions and open discussion about why people are leaving? What would entice them and enhance them, enhance the opportunity to get them to stay in our district and speak openly about it? Social media is a good thing and a bad thing. Unfortunately, it's a bad thing when more people speak out in a negative way about why they've left and different things. And I believe that has a big effect on what's going on and the conversations that are being had out there. And I think that collectively working together to enhance programs and bring more into the district will improve that and reduce attrition and hopefully attract back some of those who we've lost.
Thank you. And then finally, Mr. Brown, declining student enrollment, particularly at the middle and high schools, is an ongoing issue for the district. What are your plans to reverse that trend and attract more students to our district schools?
You're correct. The reduction of our enrollment, we see it every month in the board meetings, the enrollment numbers, and it's sad because at one time we had over 6,000 students in the district, and now we're down to about 4,500. And you ask, where did they go? Where have these students disappeared to? I think the pandemic showed a lot of people that there's other options out there, whether it's online education or the private or charter schools. So I think what we have to do as a district is really take a step back and look at what's the best practices of our competition, and they are our competition. What can we do within our budget constraints that can maybe be able to bring those students back to our schools? A few years ago, the community was asked to approve us joining EVID, East Valley Institute of Technology, and with that, the career and technical education classes that come along with that. We had a survey done of the students at that time, and they were interested in culinary arts, in different medical fields, technology, and I think that's something that students are still interested in, and we need to reach out and say, what can we do to bring those classes, those programs back, and hopefully then bring those students back along with that? Thank you.
Thank you.
So our next question is, in recent years, school safety and security has become a nationwide problem and one to which the Cave Creek School District is not immune. How do you propose that we help to keep our schools, our students, and our teachers and staff safe? What measures can the district take? Mrs. Cummins, you can start us off.
So safety obviously is on the forefront. And what we can do is, a lot of what we have in place already is quite sophisticated in that if you do go to our schools, you have to have permission to get in. There's a lot of it, they're locked down. So we've done some preliminary things. We can do more with being able to have visual eyes on the settings. We have school safety officers that are there to support us. There's more than it's a shame that our kids are having to be trained to how to respond in these scenarios. So we have to make sure that we have in place the understanding that we are providing for their needs, that we are aware and become ever vigilant and keep those processes in place.
Thank you. Mrs. Ulmer, how do you propose that we keep our schools, our students, and our teachers and staff safe? What measures can the district take?
Well, I think a lot of it goes back to really listening to the teachers, because they're typically the one that's bearing the brunt of negative things that happen in the classroom, whether it be fights breaking out or threats being made or observing behaviors. And I know over the course of the years, and again, I don't want to speak specifically for the Cave Creek district. I'm not a teacher, I'm not in the school, so to pretend that I'm there seeing exactly what's going on would be a fallacy. But you know, there's videos posted on social media of fights breaking out and, you know, teachers feeling inhibited, whether they have the authority to report it or should they, or often when they do, it's kind of like, oh, well, you know, let's just talk to that student and make sure everything's okay. So I think that it's important that we be diligent to pay attention and to learn from the past. History will repeat itself if we're not careful, and when we go back and look at the Parkland shooting, for instance, and some of the things that have gone on, there was a whole lot of history that went on behind the scenes that was kind of put under the rug and not really brought to the forefront. So I think we all have to be diligent. If you see something, say something, and it needs to be taken seriously.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, your response.
The world's a much different place than what it was 20 years ago. I think we all know that. Almost every day we see violence in cities, we see violence in shopping centers, we see violence in schools. Over the years, the district, I think, has done a lot to help safety and security on the different school campuses. We've increased the fencing, we've increased our security to go into the schools through the front offices. We ask everybody to log in. We try to track the visitors that are on campus. We have to have that feeling of safety and that our students feel safe, that they want to come to our schools. Other things, other tasks that the district can do, obviously being ever vigilant. The trends on social media are terrible, and the things that young people see on social media, they think they want to do it at the schools and film it because that makes them cool. And it does put them in danger, it puts their other students in danger. Something about safety and security on the campuses. I've had gentlemen ask me that are veterans, and they said, why can't we volunteer to maybe be part of a safety group on campuses? And I thought that would be a great idea, and that involves the community and gives us a chance to maybe reach out and do something a little different. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bunkers, how do you propose that we help to keep our schools, our students, and teachers and staff safe? What measures can the district take?
Thank you. Again, students, staff, and teachers need to feel safe in order for effective learning to occur. I was PTO president at Horseshoe Trails when we first brought out the Raptor program. We were the first school to bring in the Raptor computer and software that tracks visitors that Member Brown was talking about. With the continuing tragic events around the country and even threats closer to home, safety needs to constantly be evaluated as something that we always need to be looking at and continue. We can learn from past events. We need to partner with law enforcement so that we can review and update our plan of action. And then also, I'd like to thank the grant providers that provide the SROs at Sonoran Trails and at Cactus Shadows. So we need to make sure that those programs continues and we have SROs on campus. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is our final question that we wrote before we get to audience questions, and we'll have a break before the audience questions. According to some reports, Arizona is currently ranked 48th in the nation for quality of education. How would you ensure that CCUSD becomes competitive with the rest of the country? Mrs. Ulmer, you're up first.
Well, it's kind of interesting. We have a tendency to think that more money thrown at a problem is what's going to resolve it. So, and that's a lot of what is brought into play when those numbers come out. So, Arizona's ranked 48th, I believe Florida's 47th. Illinois, interestingly, a study just came out about Illinois that ranked it at 7th, but, and they spend something around $16,000 per student, and I think we're in the I can't remember exactly what the number is, but when you look at that, Florida ranks so much higher than Illinois in terms of academic excellence. It's quite interesting. So it's not necessarily the amount of money that's spent, it's the way that money's spent and the effectiveness of it. So I think, again, like so many different things, we need to take apart the education system, figure out what is that money being spent on, and what creates that enriched environment for a student to thrive. It's not just about dollars, because if it were, then Illinois would rank higher, much higher than Florida, but it doesn't. You know, again, we're talking 7th down to 47th. 40 numbers differentiate those two, but Florida has higher test scores. We're right below Florida in terms of amount of money that's spent, so I'd like to see us perhaps emulate what Florida's doing as a state and see what we can do with that regard.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, according to some reports, Arizona is currently ranked 48th in the nation for quality of education. How would you ensure that CCUSD becomes competitive with the rest of the country?
Well, first, let me say Arizona's national ranking there it goes. First, let me say Arizona's national ranking is no indication of what's going on within the Cave Creek School District. We've seen our test scores, and traditionally over the years, our students more than double the state averages on our state assessment tests. And I think that's attributed to the great teachers that we have and the curriculum that we use to teach to our students. Without appropriate education funding, though, long-term classroom achievement will be compromised. So it's important to continue to focus on the programs that set us apart and to give our students a chance to compete on not only a national stage, but on a world stage. For instance, the world language programs that we have in the district has become the gold standard for other districts in the state to copy. So that means that we're being a trendsetter and we're able to do some things at our schools that other districts say, hey, look at what they're doing. We want our students to have that same opportunity. We have to continue to be creative and innovative on how we deliver instruction to our students. In today's world, technology is going faster and faster, and our students are learning at a younger age and using that technology, so we need to continue that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bunkers, according to some reports, Arizona is currently ranked 48th in the nation for quality of education. How would you ensure that CCUSD becomes competitive with the rest of the country?
Again, we need to create a safe environment for students, teachers, and staff. It's fundamental for learning to occur. Continue to offer programs and activities that parents and students want. Make Cave Creek Schools the school of choice. Retrain and attract the highest qualified teachers and provide the support that they need. And recognize and celebrate our students and teachers for high achieving scores, but continue to evaluate. We need to debrief. We need to figure out what went well and what went wrong. We constantly need to be reflecting on what we've done and how we can do better. We do that as an airline pilot. I do that after every flight. What went well and what could I have done better? And that just achieves the best that we can possibly be. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, Mrs. Cummins. According to some reports, Arizona is currently ranked 48th in the nation for quality of education. How would you ensure that CCUSD becomes competitive with the rest of the country?
And again, I agree that funding is crucial to support our school systems. I think too that, we teach the basic, reading, writing, math, history, science, the whole 9 yards. But without the ability to be able to apply those skills with critical thinking and problem-solving techniques, that we're missing the boat. I think one of the things that we don't focus on, and even as a nation, is that we look at test scores, and that becomes the gold standard. And I wish, and I have no idea how we can accomplish that, but I wish we would look at the ability to put more weight on applied learning as much as we do on test scoring. But until that happens, we're not going to see a lot of change. We are very competitive in our district. We're, A+ schools. And so in spite of the monies that were allotted, we're giving programs and choice. I think the direction that we're going, like Mr. Brown was talking about, at our middle school and our high school, that we have career pathways that are improving so that every child has that ability to move forward in a direction that's going to challenge them.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your responses. We will now have a 5-minute recess to collect index cards from the audience. Audience questions will be submitted in writing and reviewed to avoid duplication and assure appropriate tone before being presented to the moderators to the candidates. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. Some of our current board members publicly criticize our schools, students, staff members, and even our superintendent. How would you go about being an ambassador and advocate of our district?
It's disappointing that maybe things get said on social media, items get pieced apart. I would hope that our board members, I know we're all passionate about our students, about our district. That's why we serve as board members. If there are disagreements, if there are some misunderstandings, I would hope that the 5 board members and administration has a chance to sit down, talk it out. Obviously, anything said in the public forum is tough. Shouldn't happen. Obviously, we should all be adults and we should be able to communicate. It's sometimes a different point of view is not a bad thing, and sometimes board members need to agree to disagree. As long as we have proper time to have discussion on whatever the topic may be, and that we're able to see each other's point of view, maybe understand what the needs of the district or the limitations of whatever the subject is, and hopefully we're able to take care of our business on the dais and not off on the public media. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bunkers, some of our current board members publicly criticize our schools, students, staff members, and even our superintendent. How would you go about being an ambassador and advocate of our district?
Well, for those of you that know me, know that I'm already an advocate and ambassador for our district. But we just need to go into things with an open mind and work together. We should all be here for a common goal, and that's high quality education, high quality public education. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cummins, some of our current board members publicly criticize our schools, students, staff members, and even our superintendent. How would you go about being an advocate and ambassador for our district?
We all have to be civil towards each other. And one of the things, especially with a superintendent, is that we have to mesh together. We have to work together. So the school board should be working for the superintendent and the school system. We should be their allies. And if we hear, whether it's on social media or just with general conversations, negative conversations that go on, we need to stop it in its place. And we need to clarify it with fact. Usually, a lot of that is just snippets of information, but if you follow it up and you actually dive in, the information is false, and we can clarify that, and we need to do that as anybody in the community that's hearing that. If we're going to make this public school system work, we need to work together and understand that, and then confront that negativity. You can't just let people get away with it. You have to stop it in its tracks and turn it around.
Thank you. And then finally, Mrs. Ulmer, some of our current board members publicly criticize our schools, students, staff members, and even our superintendent. How would you go about being an advocate and ambassador for our district?
Well, I think it's important that any group work together in a cohesive unit for the betterment of society, and certainly our students and our teachers and our staff and our whole community. I have to assume that a lot of that comes down to social media. And if there's one thing I've learned with social media and texting and email, is that the written word itself is very dangerous. The only person that puts context into the written word is the reader, not necessarily the author of the written word. So I think it's very important that perception is not misplaced, and then interpretation is everything. So I know for me personally, I've asked very few questions out on social media in general, just about the school board, the election, what goes on within the district, and I learned very quickly that that's not the place to be. So I know personally, I won't be on social media talking in any way, shape, or form about the district as a board member because it typically serves no good purpose.
Thank you.
Our next audience question is, what are you personally doing to make sure the override passes? Mr. Bunkers, we'll start with you.
Well, I've been to the kickoff event. I've talked with parents, and I've also placed override signs out in the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cummins, what are you personally doing to make sure the override passes?
So first of all, I went to the website to find out all the information so that when questions arise, you have the right information that's being disseminated. So that was key. I went to the kickoffs. I've gone to numerous businesses and asked for their support. Position signs, just out and about. But basically, it's just making sure that everybody knows this has nothing to do with politics. This has to do with our children's education. And this is one thing we can all wrap our arms around. And that's just the way we're approaching it.
Thank you. Mrs. Ulmer, what are you personally doing to make sure the override passes?
Well, I've attended a presentation so that I could get an understanding of what's out there, what's proposed, and how it's going to work. And then one of the other things that I've done is not only talk with parents within my community, in my neighborhood, and others in my very small local area, but I've also reached out to a number of the more retired community, because that's a part of the area that I network within as a business owner, and asked them to attend presentations, make sure that they have a listing of where everything's happening, the website, where they can view all of that, and then have tried to compile a list of their questions, their concerns, so that we can get those addressed. It's kind of one of the things that I mentioned, that we have a tough nut to crack in some cases, because we do have a large retirement community who may not fully understand what all's involved and the importance of it. So I'm just working to get questions from them, find out what their concerns are, and figure out ways to get those answered.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, what are you personally doing to make sure the override passes?
Well, I was fortunate enough to see the original presentation that was given to the board back in April, and it was very well done, very well presented. The committee that had been put together did their due diligence, and I thought they brought an excellent option to the board. Obviously, by the board's vote of a 5-0 vote to support moving that forward to the ballot here in November, I think was very important. I think that shows the community that the board supports this override. Personally, I've attended 3 of the different public sessions that the override presentation has been given. I'm going there to support. Obviously, I'm interested to hear what the parents and community members that attend these, what they have to say, what their questions are. Hopefully I can help them understand the needs of the district and what this override will do for us. I also would like to commend the group that has been put together, the Action for Students Pact, and I think that has really done a yeoman's work, and I know they've got a lot more to do here in the last 49 days, 48 days before the election to try to get that message out there. But I just want to be available if anybody has questions, whether it's parents, somebody I run into at the grocery store, I'm able to talk to them and answer their questions and hopefully convince them that what the override's good for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question. Please disclose any financial contributions you have received for this campaign and identify the source. Mrs. Cummins, you're up first.
Um, So I have received, you want each identified? I mean,
Yeah, please disclose any financial contributions you've received and identify the source.
the source has always just been community members, people that have gone on my website and want to offer their support to my campaign. So it's, you don't have to go out and recruit it. It's the campaign itself doesn't require a lot of monetary. It's more boots on the ground information that we need to get out. So that hasn't been a stumbling block, and I haven't, received that much, but it certainly, any little bit has helped to get information that you can disseminate.
Thank you. Mrs. Ulmer, please disclose any financial contributions you've received for this campaign and identify the source.
Yeah, I'm proud to say that the Arizona Free Enterprise Club, without me having even met them, sent me a $500 donation to the campaign. And then I have been part of the Citizens for Cave Creek Students PAC, who's contributed. Other than that, I haven't personally, honestly, gone about fundraising. I'm much more of a networker, get out, meet the people, talk to them, address what their concerns are, and do my best to sell myself.
I've been fortunate. My signs that I've have out in the community, I purchased when I ran 4 years ago, and I purchased those signs myself. After the election in 2018, I went around and picked them all up, and they've been in my garage for 4 years, so I haven't had to go out and spend money to buy signs. My website cost me $4.09, and I think I was able to pay for that myself. I have been approached by a PAC called Citizens for Cave Creek Schools. They have done some very small fundraising, but at this time, they've not provided any funding for me for my campaign.
Thank you. And then Mr. Bunkers, please disclose any financial contributions you've received for this campaign and identify the source.
None. Zero.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question is, how would you address the negativity on social media and create a community culture? Mrs. Ulmer, you may begin.
Well, I think I shared that already. I'm not a fan of using social media. It's kind of funny. I'm a social media coach and trainer and have been for years. And one of the first things I start my clients with is don't talk about two things, religion and politics. And even though we like to say the school board isn't political, it tends to lend itself to a lot of political conversation. So I love where I live. I live in actually Scottsdale. I'm literally right here between the Y and Cactus Shadows. I love sitting out on Friday evenings and listening to the football games in my backyard. I love where we live, and I'm a positive advocate for our community, where we live, our district, our schools, our teachers. But I don't personally use social media as a platform to put my voice out there in terms of any of my political statements. You can go back for years and see where you won't find anything about me politically out there. That's just my personal philosophy.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, how would you address the negativity on social media and create a community culture?
Well, like Mrs. Ulmer, I'm also not much on social media. I think I drive my daughter nuts because I don't know what she's doing because I'm not on Instagram. I do have a Facebook page, I do have a Twitter account, and if you go back and look at those, I think I like about everything that the school district or our great schools post. It's more of just pushing that positive information out to the community. There is negative comments on social media. I read Facebook. I have people that will screenshot something and send it to me. Again, a lot of those comments maybe are made without the author having full knowledge of what they're discussing. And to try to, you can't really have a discussion on Facebook. If anybody has any questions, I'm always available to talk. I run into people all the time. I do the grocery shopping. I'm at Home Depot. I'm up at the football fields, whatever it is. So is there negativity on Facebook, on social media? Yes. If anybody, though, has a question or wants to talk to me about something specific, I'd be more than happy to tell them, and maybe I'll enlighten them with some facts that maybe they didn't know. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bunkers, how would you address the negativity on social media and create a community culture?
Absolutely. So I've got Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and primarily lately it's just been sharing facts about the override and just positive things about the school, liking Mr. Pettinato's posts about horseshoe trails or, things like that. Just, but certainly not making any negative comments or anything like that. It's just, I'm really not big, like Member Brown, in social media. However, I do occasionally go on social media, but just to perpetuate the positive comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cummins, how would you address the negativity on social media and create a community culture?
So just like the rest of the candidates, my social media is very minimal. One of the things that you can do is you can take anything out of context, and so that's why I don't usually respond, because somebody can take a very benign point of view and take it and fly with it. So I think it can be a real deterrent, so I stay away from it. I have posted when I got enough signatures on my petition, because that was a celebration. So that's about the only thing. I do have a Facebook page and post. But I think we have to be very, very careful. I think it would be easy to want to respond back to people, because I do read what's out there, but just because you become aware of mindsets and things that you might confront. One of the things that I did do when I started being a little bit more cognizant about Facebook was I started going on all of the websites for all of the schools. And it's the one way that I've learned a tremendous about what's going on everywhere in the district. And it just really reinforces the reason why it's important that we have good candidates.
Thank you.
Imagine a world where CCUSD received excessive funding and twice the current teachers and staff. Life is good. Now CCUSD needs to set ourselves apart. What else would need to change or improve to attract more students to our district? Mr. Brown, you are up first.
That would be a wonderful problem to have. I would welcome that in a heartbeat. I think all of us would welcome that. I think you have to go back and look at programs. You have to look at what the students really want to do. Our high school, not every high school student wants to go to college. There are many high school students that want to go into a trade. There's also many high school students that want to serve our country and go into the military. So we need to look at all the avenues that are out there that our students are interested in and do everything we can do to give them the great base of education to get them going on their career path. I wish we could do more right now with the funding that we have, but we really can't, and it's tough. I've seen, like I said, I've seen the student surveys, and I know we have such a great student body, especially at the high school, over the years. And as we see those surveys, we keep seeing the same items come up. So I wish we could focus on those like in the health fields or in the technology or coding, and try to offer as much of that, as well as pushing our relationship that we have with EVIT. I think there's a lot of students that we should encourage that want to learn a trade to go out and work out at EVIT and get their foot on the ground for those beginning their career in the trades. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bunkers, what else would need to change or improve to attract more students to our district?
Well, so first of all, we've got all the teachers and staffing that we need. I would say classroom sizes would need to be dramatically reduced, and we could solve that with all the extra teachers that we have, hypothetically. Technology, there's a great need for technology in our school district. and increasing the number of programs available so that all students have what they need to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cummins, what else would need to change or improve to attract more students to our district?
So I think if we could put in place programs like Mr. Brown was talking about, where the culinary fields, where IT, where we have more hands-on, we have more, we utilize audiovisual, we utilize all the tools that are available out there to, I mean, when you look at what I can learn now from just programs on history and the universe and everything that's come to fruition that, you know, we didn't have any idea. If we could expound on those and use that technology a little bit more to our advantage, that would be great. I'd also like to see some programs put into place to help parents, because I think as a parent, I know when my kids were younger, there was one time that they actually brought all of the parents in for how to teach and how to help with math in a certain grade that we were going through. And it was immensely helpful because I could actually go home and help my child with his math project. Now, you know, sometimes I have to just hope that they get it in school. Because they can't ask me because I don't really get it. So I'd like to have expounded on some programs that will make us more cohesive so that we're all
Thank you,
one.
Mrs. Cummins. And finally, Mrs. Ulmer, what else would need to change or improve to attract more students to our district?
Well, I think programs for sure, just to hit on what's already been shared. I know for me, EVIT makes me feel like a kid in a candy store. It makes me want to go back to school. There's so many exciting different career paths that kids could choose outside of college. The culinary arts, I think, is fascinating. I recently met a woman up here who runs a drone company, you know, teaching drone aviation, and there's a huge growing need for that. There's just so many different career paths that aren't fulfilled in colleges and that particular path that I think we'd have the opportunity to expand a lot of horizons for our students if we had those opportunities. So I definitely see programs, especially if all the rest of it's taken care of with teachers and smaller classroom sizes and all of that, to expand those programs.
Thank you.
Finally, each candidate will have 90 seconds to provide a closing statement. Mr. Brown, you may start us off.
First, I'd like to say thank you to the Cactus Shadows International Baccalaureate students for hosting tonight's forum. I think they did a wonderful job. They also, by hosting the forum, it gives the community a chance to meet and listen to the candidates that are running for the 2 board seats. It's important as voters to be informed, not just about national issues and races, but to be involved in the local elections, to make good choices in the voting booth, and to select the right candidates to lead our school district moving forward. Elections are not about the future, or excuse me, elections are about the future, but school board elections are about our children's future. I'm honored to have been named a preferred candidate by the Purple for Parents group, by the American PAC organization, by our local Legislative District 3 precinct captains, and just this week by the Desert Mountain Breakfast Club. I'm proud of my time I've spent on the board. These past 4 years have gone by really quick, and I hope I've made good decisions for not only the community, but for our students. So for more information, I invite you to my website. It's brown4cc schools.com. My Facebook page is Scott Brown for Cave Creek Schools, and my Twitter account, Brown4cc Schools. Thank you for attending this evening. Thank you for your support and for your vote on Election Day on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bunkers, your closing statement.
All right. Again, thank you to CCUSD, Cactus Shadows, and the IB students for allowing us all to come together so we can get our information out to the voters. Education is paramount to strong communities. It's the fabric of our society. So we need high quality public education. We also need to make sure that our students, staff, and teachers are safe. We need to maintain or bring back programs that we have. We need to pass the override. We need to innovate and evolve. We can stick with what's working, but we also need to adjust as needed. We need to work together and leave our preconceived notions behind, come into board meetings with an open mind, and make decisions based on what's right, not who's right. I appreciate everybody coming out to get the information that they need and vote for Brian. My website is electbrianbunkers.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cummins, you may begin.
My husband and I were foster parents for years, providing an alternative, safe environment for kids when their families were in crisis. It would have been easy to judge the parents, but that's not why we went into this in the first place. We were there to work with families to reunite them. I correlate this with coming on the school board. We're not there to judge, but to work together for the betterment of all the children in our district. If I'm elected, I will leave my biases and personal agenda at the door, come prepared to listen, have done the research on whatever is before us, ask appropriate questions, and work with fellow members to make decisions that are, again, in the best interest of all the kids in our school districts. I want to make sure that I communicate the educational diversity and opportunity that exists in our schools throughout our community. And maximize the use of funds available is of paramount importance. Let's make public schools our schools of choice. I want to thank the International Baccalaureates and our school district for providing us with this opportunity to present our values, qualities, and goals for our district to the electorate. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Mrs. Ulmer, you may begin your closing statement.
Well, again, thank you to the International Baccalaureate students. And I also want to thank my 3 other candidates running. I have to say one of the best things tonight that I took away is I felt like this right here is a very cohesive group. I appreciated the listening that every person here offered. I love the fact that we bounced off each other with different ideas and different concepts that were suggested. And that really made me personally feel comfortable that whoever's elected has the best interest of our school district, our community, and our students in mind. And so that makes me feel really good and confident. And I say thank you to all of you, and thank you to those of you who came out. You know, children are our greatest asset, and they absolutely deserve our best. They deserve our best as parents. They deserve our best as community members, from the teachers to the superintendent, the administration and the staff. And I know that together, if we work together, we can really do great things for our community, for our district, and for our students. It's said that knowledge is power, but really knowledge is potential power. But knowledge in action is truly what power is. And it's great to see, these young upcoming leaders and these critical thinkers and the people who are going to make decisions for us as we continue to age and, move off into the sunset. So I feel really good about that. I'm happy to live in the Cave Creek School District. We have a great school district. Can we improve? Absolutely. But we don't have many of the problems that other districts are facing.
Thank you, Mrs. Ulmer.
Yep.
Thank you to the school board, the administrative team at Cactus Shadows, and Mr. Cupo, Ms. Clay, Mr. Contreras, and Ms. Thomas for helping. And then a huge thank you to the Cactus Shadows Photography and Media Club for recording the forum to share afterwards. Thank you to the audience members for attending, and please vote. Thank you. Mr. Brown, please disclose any financial contributions you've received for this campaign and identify the source.